What is the best comic book moment from Godzilla vs. Cthulhu? A death may die story. Oh man, Godzilla vs. Cthulhu is what I'd call an ascended fantasy fight. Once it was nothing more than a fantasy fight that only nerds argued incessantly about online. Now it's a real comic. Unfortunately, it's a San Diego Comic-Con exclusive comic, which is a bummer because that means many fans will miss out on reading this. Fortunately, I acquired a copy, and I will be providing commentary on its singular greatest moment. First, major credit goes to Andrew Kaiju X for being kind enough to help provide these excellent screen grabs. Please visit his YouTube channel. Andrew is awesome. Firstly, the comic in question is a fairly straightforward, self-contained single issue. Cthulhu awakens, heralding apocalyptic doom, but before Eldritch Squidward can get to the purging, Godzilla, who's feeling Cthulhu's adverse effects on the planet, he shows up to save the day. And from there, all hell breaks loose. Despite being only one issue, Godzilla and Cthulhu's fight is quite the spectacle. Seeing these two legendary titans throw down, one a cinematic icon and the other a favorite in the horror genre, is awesome. The best moment comes in the end when the humans try to destroy all monsters with their state-of-the-art atom smasher beams. Cthulhu is completely unharmed, which is bad news for everyone. Making matters even worse, Godzilla, he's seriously wounded. Like, left to die in a puddle of his own blood wounded. Cthulhu, though, he's free to consume the planet because it looks like Godzilla has been completely and utterly defeated. But see, Godzilla's not ready to die. He rises like the nuclear king he is, and severely wounds great Cthulhu with his heat ray. In the heart of a burning city, Cthulhu stands frozen in perpetual torment, a fitting punishment to any elder god who would be unwise to pick a fight with Godzilla. After all, if the Cthulhu mythos have taught us anything, it's that there are worse things than death. What is the best comic book moment from Godzilla Rivals vs. SpaceGodzilla? Centuries after the events of 1994's Godzilla vs. SpaceGodzilla, SpaceGodzilla is discovered hibernating inside an asteroid orbiting a mysterious planet. Thanks to a mining probe drilling into his skull, those sweet dreams of killing Godzilla over and over again abruptly ends, and SpaceGodzilla wakes up in the foulest of moods. And I mean, I hate waking up too, so, this is all super relatable. SpaceGodzilla subsequently crash lands, and everything pops off from there. With the eyes of the alien world watching, SpaceGodzilla declares war on everyone. Take a moment, my esteemed kaiju viewer. Imagine watching the news one day, and a terrifying space monster suddenly falls from the sky. And then, without provocation, the space monster makes it clear to everyone that no one is safe. To me, that's just scary, or it's a cool comic. Either way. So back to the story, SpaceGodzilla sets his eyes on the planet's energy source. On his path for power, SpaceGodzilla triggers a global crisis. You see, the planet has two sentient species, with snake-like beings making up the ruling caste system. But they themselves become a house divided because one sect is made up of a group of religious zealots who worship the Crystal King. And wouldn't you know it, SpaceGodzilla's arrival happens to coincide with their prophecies. Ooh, what a coincidence. Because of this, a civil war erupts between SpaceGodzilla's worshippers and everyone else. This brings me to the best moment. It's easily one of the finest one-page spreads I've ever seen. Matt Frank, the writer and illustrator of this book, deserves endless praise for creating such an incredible visual, because it single-handedly summarizes not only the premise, but to me, SpaceGodzilla as a character. He is consumed by two types of hunger: power and vengeance. Although power and vengeance can be complementary, they ultimately divide SpaceGodzilla from achieving his true quest in life, which is total dominion. More apropos, SpaceGodzilla's hatred of Godzilla is a construct of his own making. He doesn't need to destroy his genetic father. It's something SpaceGodzilla craves for reasons he may not even know himself. Like how his worshippers believe in made-up ideologies, so too does SpaceGodzilla. It's unknown if SpaceGodzilla is literally the Crystal King from the snake-like people's religion, from their scripture. It's possible that centuries ago, when SpaceGodzilla, shortly after being pretty much obliterated by Godzilla, he arrived, and maybe SpaceGodzilla unknowingly inspired the story of the Crystal King, which years later would inspire a religion. But regarding SpaceGodzilla and his extreme hatred for Godzilla, let's not forget that same hatred has led him to ruin before. Remember, the story takes place hundreds of years after their last battle in 1994. SpaceGodzilla was believed dead. We don't exactly know how long it took for the cosmic kaiju to heal. I mean, his body was literally vaporized. But it's a safe bet that it took an extremely long time. Instead of obsessing over Godzilla, SpaceGodzilla could be conquering the cosmos, expanding his crystal empire. Of all the monsters in the kaiju pantheon, SpaceGodzilla has the potential to be the most powerful being in creation. But he never will be, because he lives in the shadow of Godzilla. For more on this incredible comic, be sure to pick it up and/or check out my review. What is the best comic book moment from Monster Warrior Godzilla? Alright, Monster Warrior Godzilla is one of the craziest Godzilla comics I've ever read. It's ridiculous, it's awesome, it's an absolute gem. For a complete breakdown, check out my Monster Warrior Godzilla video. Long story short, just in case you're still here, humans from another reality are encroaching on Godzilla's realm. Initially reluctant to fight, Godzilla takes the fight to mankind after being betrayed by Biollante, which led to the deaths of many kaiju. Okay, so let's just say real quick, Godzilla giving Biollante her comeuppance for her treachery is a runner-up for the best moment. But out of so many awesome moments, and there are many, easily the best moment in Monster Warrior Godzilla goes to Godzilla fighting in space, wielding a giant sword against an army of spaceships. Do I need to say more? Are you not entertained? One thing I have really come to embrace in this absurd tale is Godzilla's Super Chad design. Now, we've seen Godzilla be anthropomorphized before, but never like this. Interestingly, the Chad Samurai design switches back and forth, to a more traditional look, depending on what's going on. I'd say the seriousness of the story. So if something that's happening, like let's say Godzilla just gets nuked or something, it's something that we see in the films. He takes on a more traditional Godzilla look. But when Chad Samurai comes up, the story is about to take a complete 180 into crazy Looney Tuneville, and it's worth it. Either way, Monster Warrior Godzilla is an absolute must-read for tokusatsu fans. Godzilla Dominion takes place shortly after the events of 2019's Godzilla King of the Monsters. In that film's climax, Godzilla has defeated King Ghidorah and has taken his place as the King of the Monsters. Bereft of a home, Godzilla is left to focus solely on his role as the king, which means he needs to rein in all those naughty titans in the world in order to maintain balance. Throughout the story, we see him travel through what is described to be the veins of the planet. At least, that's how it is from Godzilla's perspective, because he sees the Earth as a living being. Along the way, Godzilla revisits his old stomping grounds, reminiscing of what used to be. It's a great insight into Godzilla's personality, And as an added bonus, we learn Kong's home, Skull Island, yeah, that once belonged to Godzilla until he was driven out by the rival, one of Kong's distant relatives. But there's one moment that stands out. Godzilla, he's reflecting on the past, visiting sites that time has dramatically altered. When the Great Titan arrives at the site of his former lair, he reflects on how early humans made this place in his honor. More apropos, they made it a place where human and Titan could coexist. Along with flashes of Serizawa's sacrifice, Godzilla knows humans have lived for him and died for him. But Serizawa was not the only sacrifice. There was another. For the first time in his long life, Godzilla feels one with the world. No longer does he see the surface of the water as a divide between worlds. Now he sees it as one big extension of himself. This is what Mothra gave her life for. This was her gift to him. While I'm not sold on the idea of an all-monster movie with very little, if any, human involvement, making a comic series told entirely from Godzilla's POV was a great idea. And seriously, we need an entire Godzilla Dominion series, like ASAP. Or like an entire animated show told entirely from Godzilla's perspective. That would be great. Or, an episode of Monarch Legacy of Monsters. It can happen. I just don't think, you could do an entire film that way. But who are we kidding? We know if that came out, I'd be the first to see it. Ever wondered who'd win in a fight between Godzilla and Zeus? This comic has you covered. Godzilla fighting mythological beings seems like a no-brainer, but it doesn't happen nearly as much as it should. That's what made the Godzilla Rage Across Time miniseries ripe for potential. Granted, the series isn't about Godzilla fighting pantheons of old per se, but it does seem like a missed opportunity. Who wouldn't want to read an entire series of Godzilla warring with every major pantheon throughout history? I'm talking about Godzilla fighting the Norse gods, the Egyptian deities. This second issue proves this is the way. Firstly, the entire issue is made of so much win, from Godzilla wiping out the Greek pantheon, to slamming the Hydra into Mount Olympus, to a no-holds-barred showdown with Zeus. This comic is earth-shattering sweet. Despite how easily Godzilla slew the other gods, Zeus is quite possibly one of the most dangerous beings Godzilla has ever fought. There's a moment where Godzilla stomps on Zeus, and it looks like that's the end of Zeus, but no, instead of succumbing to the fates, the Sky Father blasts Godzilla back with his lightning. In the climactic conclusion, Zeus pours everything he has into this lightning blast, seemingly doing the impossible, unaliving Godzilla. But Zeus's victory comes at a price. Godzilla took everything from him: his divine power, his family, and his worshippers. Now a lowly mortal, Zeus wanders the world seeking to understand the mortals he once looked down upon from the heavens above. You see, Zeus is empowered by mankind's faith in him. If humanity starts believing in him again, his divine power might return. Just kidding, Godzilla's not dead. His atomic breath cremates Zeus and wipes out Pompeii. Godzilla rising out of Mount Vesuvius like an invincible titan is one of the best comic book moments ever. By the way, this needs to be made into an animated feature with one major change. Let's have a battle between the two kings of the monsters, Godzilla versus Typhon. Typhon, he's the Greek monster of old. He's considered, at the time, in fact, I think he had the moniker King of the Monsters. Let's see the old King of the Monsters fight the new King of the Monsters. I'm literally just, this is all, like, this is easy money. Come on. Come on. Come on, let's see it. Every Heisei Godzilla film has a manga companion. Interestingly, the mangas fall between being faithfully accurate to being completely different. I think most of us can agree. The final battle in the Godzilla vs. MechaGodzilla film is violent, but it's tame compared to the ultra-violent manga, which is why viewer discretion is advised. For starters, the Garuda snipes out Godzilla's eyes with these barbed-looking projectiles. If you think that's graphic, just you wait for what comes next. How about Godzilla's midsection erupting due to MechaGodzilla targeting his second brain? No, not enough. How about MechaGodzilla viciously tearing Godzilla's torso fins apart? Holy crap. Did I mention the newly hatched baby Godzilla is forced to watch this brutality? I mean, the clear takeaway from all of this is being a parent is painful. But then the unthinkable happens. MechaGodzilla nearly decapitates Godzilla with its kaiju-slaying cannons. You heard that right, which is why, let me repeat, MechaGodzilla nearly decapitates Godzilla with its cannons, with his head nearly parted from his shoulders. Held together by just a few strands of flesh, Godzilla's long life, it's literally flashing before his eyes. Making matters worse, MechaGodzilla then points the very same cannons that just nearly took off Godzilla's head at baby Godzilla. Yeah, so like in the film, Fire Rodan sacrifices himself to save Godzilla's life. Restored by Rodan's radioactivity, Godzilla is truly reborn, stronger than ever before. Godzilla just, he no-sells the very same cannons that just a few pages ago nearly took his head off, and then goes on to absolutely demolish his robotic doppelganger. Here's the thing about Manga MechaGodzilla. This guy inspired his MonsterVerse counterpart. By that I mean in the Heisei manga, MechaGodzilla he just goes berserk because of Mecha King Ghidorah's influence. That's right, Mecha King Ghidorah is pretty much mind-controlling MechaGodzilla. Similarly to how King Ghidorah in Godzilla vs. Kong mind controls that MechaGodzilla. Beaten and desperate for revenge, MechaGodzilla entangles Godzilla and self-destructs. And it's nothing to just underestimate. It's not like a city block goes up. No, the entire city. It's like an atomic bomb goes off in the middle of a city. And Godzilla's perfectly fine. What is the best comic book moment from Marvel Godzilla? Okay, so back in the 1970s, Godzilla crossed over into the Marvel Universe. No, not that one. The comic book one. Throughout this multiple issue run, Godzilla clashed with powerful forces like Hercules, Devil Dinosaur, Red Ronin, all manner of kaiju, the Fantastic Four, and then, in the epic finale, the Avengers. Seeing Godzilla facing off against the likes of Thor, Iron Man, Vision, the Human Torch, basically the best Marvel had to offer, was a true sight to behold. I mean, Godzilla even hurt the Human Torch with his fiery breath. I mean, what's next? Hurting Aquaman with fish? The final issue is chock full of great moments. My personal favorite is the momentous clash between Godzilla and Thor. King of the Monsters versus the God of Thunder, Titan versus God, although the real winner in that fight, the Empire State Building. It somehow withstood the combined strengths of Godzilla and Thor. Such a remarkable feat of engineering. Let's not forget Spider-Man's surprise cameo in the end. It was a great way to conclude Godzilla's first Marvel adventure. Who else agrees? We are long overdue for a rematch. Until then, a new Marvel Godzilla Omnibus is on its way. This October 1st, 2024 release will give us all 24 issues of Godzilla's adventures through the Marvel Universe. The pages will be of fine quality and the book will be hardcover, so definitely worth adding to your reading collection. What is the best comic book moment from Justice League vs. Godzilla vs. Kong? Unsurprisingly, Godzilla killing Superman shall go down as one of the best moments in Godzilla comic book history. There's a lot of build-up to Superman meeting his terrible end. First, we learned about how Clark Kent, who is secretly Superman if you're new to pop culture, he's planning on proposing to Lois Lane. But then suddenly Godzilla disrupts Superman's marriage proposal, which is just hardcore. True to his character, Superman at first tries to reason with Godzilla, but Godzilla, he's not interested in diplomacy. For the next few hours, Superman and Godzilla duke it out, neither hurting the other. Now, okay, so I'm a huge Godzilla fan, but I'm also a pretty big Superman fan. So for me, every panels starring these two, it's a dream come true. Superman notices how Godzilla is gravely concerned with his metahuman world, and to be fair, Godzilla does have a point given the dysfunctional nature of the DC universe. After Shazam does something dumb, Superman is forced to shield Shazam's depowered alter ego, the young Billy Batson, from Godzilla's atomic breath. Superman does survive. No, Superman does not survive. Well, he does, but he doesn't. The Justice League doesn't know or doesn't want to accept the truth. It's a little bit left ambiguous, but here we are. Not that it matters. Thanks to Batman and Cyborg, Superman would later in the story be boom-tubed to the sun, where his ravaged body is able to be restored, resurrected by its solar energy. We don't know who'd win in a rematch between Godzilla or Amplified Superman because we get something better. A Super Titan team-up. Godzilla in Hell is one of the most imaginative Godzilla stories of all time. It's a comic book miniseries written and illustrated by multiple artists, and it's about, you guessed it, Godzilla in Hell. At first, we don't know what Godzilla is doing in Hell. How did he get there? Is he dead? These are questions that remained a mystery. And even when we're given an answer, it's usually riddled in nuance that is left to interpretation. Regardless, Godzilla in Hell is one of the most visually striking, unique stories in the Godzilla mythos. The premise alone is fresh and fascinating. Okay, so honorable mentions, come on, we gotta get out with it. Off the top of my head, Godzilla falling into hell at the beginning of the first issue, Godzilla fighting off millions of damned souls. I mean, who knows, these could actually be all the people that Godzilla himself actually killed. Who knows? Godzilla fighting a weird demonic Godzilla thing, hybrid looking creature. Literally everything Bob Eggleton did. Godzilla and SpaceGodzilla destroying the entire planet in their beam war. Godzilla standing up to God and rejecting him. This incredible shot of Godzilla standing in a white void. But easily the best moment happens in the final issue. What makes Godzilla in Hell special is how it helped Godzilla develop as a character. As he traveled deeper into the circles of hell, Godzilla improved his problem-solving skills. And by that I mean he developed them for the first time ever because he never had any to begin with. I mean, seriously, up until now, Godzilla's sole problem-solving method was hitting things with atomic fire. It's probably why he went to hell in the first place. Actually, the God Mountain sent him, but, I digress. In the final issue, Godzilla overcomes the harshest elements before finally reaching the deepest pit of hell. Before him stands a massive monolith with a torii gate waiting for him at the summit. The gate is not only his salvation, it's his ticket out of here. Unfortunately, an impossibly large, multi-armed Leviathan is blocking his way. Because of course it is. It casually creates an buries Godzilla alive. But Godzilla, he perseveres. Hounded by thousands of bat-like blind demons, Godzilla is faced with a choice. In the past, he would have attacked his enemies relentlessly until they were destroyed, or he was. But that mindless disposition, that mindless inclination towards violence is what got him banished to hell in the first place. There's gotta be another way, and Godzilla finds it. Godzilla closes his eyes, allowing the demons to consume his flesh down to the bone. Godzilla's skeleton crumbles to the ground, and it is quite the sight. For a moment, it seems like hell has won, but then the demons start growing eyes. Godzilla's eyes. One by one, they all begin to transform, roaring like Godzilla. That's because they've all been taken over by the king of the monsters. Godzilla lives in the demon swarm, bending them to his will. I mean, surprise, Godzilla is possessing the demon. With their swarming bodies, Godzilla uses the demons to assemble his skeleton, to pick up his skeleton and reform his body. Godzilla has risen. Every inch of Godzilla's demonic new body has turned into a shrieking mouth, an instrument of his will, and it burns bright with his almighty power. Yeah, too little too late. The Leviathan The Leviathan realizes Godzilla, he's sealed his fate. Godzilla, he's about to send him to hell. Godzilla turns his entire body into a massive atomic blast, obliterating the Leviathan and paving a path directly to the top. Through sheer indomitable willpower, Godzilla walks up through the Torii Gate and rises anew in a body and world made of his own design. I'll close this video out with the same quote that concluded Godzilla in Hell. It is better to conquer yourself than to win 1,000 battles. Then the victory is yours. It cannot be taken from you, not by angels or demons, heaven or hell. One of the most electrifying moments in the 90s was watching the Green Ranger summon Dragonzord. By playing a still to this day catchy tune with his dragon flute, every Power Ranger fan knew not what, but who was coming next. Dragonzord! All while accompanied by a thrilling score that, due to legal reasons, I can't play to you right now, but real ones in the audience, you know what I'm talking about. Godzilla vs. Dragonzord is one of the main dream matchups every Godzilla Power Ranger fan had growing up. You can bet many of us acted out this fantasy battle with our toys. Mothra be praised. The Godzilla vs. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers comic book has delivered a true gem. Granted, it's given us many great moments. Rita Repulsa meeting the controller of Planet X, Gigan fighting Megazord, Megazord healing Godzilla, Godzilla and the Power Rangers teaming up against King Ghidorah, Godzilla and Mega Dragonzord engaging in a classic beam war, Rita falling through the multiverse, seeing different variants of Godzilla. Okay, I need to save those for a future video. This next moment is by far the best one. Rita Repulsa's ambition for absolute power knows no limits. After acquiring the fabled multiversal focus, an artifact capable of opening trans-dimensional portals to other realities, Rita's ascension seems all but certain. Until the Green Ranger intervenes, well, you know, he succeeds in kicking Goldar in his smug face. Rita actually succeeds. She activates the multiversal focus, believing she and her army have now arrived in a parallel Earth that will be, since there are no Power Rangers there, it must be completely defenseless, and theirs for the taking, right? Except this world is protected by Godzilla. One thing leads to another, and the Green Ranger wakes up believing he's still in his world, not realizing he's stranded in an alternate reality. Believing his Angel Grove is being attacked, Green Ranger summons the legendary Dragonzord. Before these two legends of my childhood tear into each other, Rita's attempts to mind control the King of the Monsters fails, because Godzilla is no one's plaything. Dragonzord sees an opening and swipes into Godzilla, tearing out chunks of atomic reptile flesh. Unlike the movies or the TV show, this comic can get exceptionally violent. Things escalate when Dragonzord starts pelting Godzilla with his discount MechaGodzilla finger missiles. Godzilla retaliates with an overwhelmingly dangerous atomic breath. It instantly decommissions Green Ranger. It instantly puts the Zord out of commission. Godzilla wins the battle, but honestly, the fans, we win the war. I mean, seeing Godzilla and Dragonzord staring each other down will go down as one of the best Godzilla comic book moments. A few years ago, I made a review of the first issue where I spent most of the time gushing over the fact this comic book crossover made me feel like a kid again. At the time of this video's recording, a sequel series is in full swing. It's awesome. You gotta check it out. I can't recommend it enough. What is the best comic book moment from Godzilla the Half-Century War? Let's be real, Godzilla the Half-Century War is currently the best Godzilla comic book series. If the entire miniseries counted as a moment, it'd all be here. In fact, I'd posit that you could pick up any Half-Century War issue, flip to any page, and what you see is a crowning moment of awesome. Alas, I'm trying to keep things fair. Special shout outs to Godzilla's first big reveal, and Gearus' big reveal as well, Kaiju Royal Rumble. My pick for the best moment in Half-Century War: the triple death match between Godzilla, MechaGodzilla, and SpaceGodzilla. This three-way battle of the Godzillas could have easily been a multi-issue conflict. Alas, deadlines are deadlines, and the next issue, which serves as the finale to the half-century storyline, is pitch perfect. Okay, so this issue begins with Godzilla laying waste to Bombay. It's the year 1987, which is rumored to be the year the world's coolest Godzilla fan was born. Things quickly escalate when Godzilla is confronted by the newly built MechaGodzilla, an anti-Godzilla robot that lives up to its programming. But things are about to get monumentally worse. Okay, so story antagonist Dr. Deverich has built a psionic transmitter device capable of summoning giant monsters, which is what a prototype of the transmitter did in a previous issue. It's that whole Kaiju Royal Rumble thing. It's awesome. So Deverich is as brilliant as he is insane. Case in point, activating your Kaiju summoning transmitter while standing right next to it may not be the smartest thing to do. Unfortunately for the people of Bombay and the world the transmitter works, it summons SpaceGodzilla. Okay, so SpaceGodzilla's arrival is right out of an H.P. Lovecraft story. It's apocalyptic in every sense of the word. SpaceGodzilla's crystal fortress is so massive it dwarfs Godzilla and MechaGodzilla, nearly caving in Bombay when it makes impact. The build-up to SpaceGodzilla's reveal is epic. Immediately, Godzilla and MechaGodzilla learn their place in the cosmic pecking order, and from here on out, the battle is turned up to 11. It's hard-hitting, fast-paced. Not a single panel goes to waste. It's a Godzilla fan's dream come true. Forced to work together, Godzilla and MechaGodzilla combine their powers to vanquish the otherworldly tyrant. Godzilla the Half-Century War inspired me as an artist and filmmaker. Issue 4 had a massive influence on my Godzilla fan film, MechaGodzilla vs. Destroya vs. SpaceGodzilla. In many ways, I owe James Stokoe so much for inoculating my imagination. In my Godzilla-loving opinion, Arthur Adams' Godzilla Color Special is the greatest Godzilla comic book of all time. It left such an impression on me at such a young age. I wholeheartedly believe it's one of the main inspirations behind my art, how I frame my shots in my film projects. Friendly reminder, this is not a full breakdown of the story. The purpose of this video is to highlight the best Godzilla comic book moments, particularly in Godzilla Color Special. With that said, this story deserves an extensive deep dive. From here on out, I'll do my best to educate you on some of the plot lines, but perhaps in another video I can do this story a better service by giving it a more comprehensive breakdown review. So hey, massive shout out to the author and illustrator Art Adams. I had the honor of meeting him several years back at Seattle's Emerald City Comic Con. Extremely nice guy. He was kind enough to share some insight into the making of Godzilla Color Special, namely on how his kaiju antagonist Gekidojin was concocted. Basically, this guy was inspired by Daimajin. Speaking of Gekidojin, every time the kaiju Oni graces a page, it's awe-inspiring. For example, when Gekidojin emerges for the first time, wielding a super-sized Otsuchi, which is a weapon samurai used in feudal Japan, my mouth dropped like when Gekidojin tried smashing in Godzilla's face with the swing of his giant hammer. Like, oh man, it's the stuff of legends. Okay, so honorable mentions aside. The best moment comes in the beginning. During a terrible storm, G-Force flies over an armada of US naval battleships, racing to the island nation Kiryoku Shima. The people of Kiryoku live in isolation, having long forsaken the outside world and its technology. But due to having no modern day communication equipment, G-Force is forced to deliver terrifying news in person with 3 words: Godzilla is coming. Out at sea in a tempest of storms, Godzilla and the United States Navy clash. It's a pretty intense exchange, with the US Navy doing everything they can not to destroy Godzilla, but to delay his advancement. See, they're just trying to buy those islanders time to escape. Now, these panels do a fairly good job at illustrating Godzilla's powers and abilities, even like if you're a longtime fan or perhaps you're new to the character. These pages do a pretty good job at showing you exactly what Godzilla is capable of. We know even for his massive size, Godzilla is inhumanly strong, nigh indestructible. He can discharge a devastating thermonuclear energy beam from his mouth, and he can be quite cunning, as is the case when he dives underwater to evade missiles, only to rise under a battleship. After Godzilla laid waste to the United States Navy, leaving the islanders completely at his mercy, there's this single frame that lives rent-free in my mind. It is without question the best moment in this highly acclaimed story. With mankind's greatest weapons reduced to ash and smoke, a dark, silhouetted Godzilla roars in victory. All the islanders can do is watch in silence and pray that their god will protect them. I love everything about this shot. From the bright and contrasting colors to Godzilla's haunting image in the bay, to the foreboding atmosphere, to the composition, everything. Godzilla Color Special is a Titan-sized gift to the Godzilla mythos. I'm proud to say I still have my first physical copy of the comic, though it's most certainly seen better days. Fortunately, I have a second copy. Not only in a better condition, it was signed by the author. Art Adams, from the bottom of my Godzilla-loving heart, thank you for enriching my childhood with this legendary story.